We're drifting to the right a little. 30 seconds. Forward. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. We copy you down, Eagle. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
On Wednesday, July 16, 1969, three astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Eugene Aldrin Jr., fondly referred to as Buzz, and Michael Collins prepared for launch in Cape Kennedy, Florida, now called Cape Canaveral. After 10 previous Apollo missions to test the waters with humans in space, Apollo 11 was ready to put man on the moon. At 9:32 a.m., the crew on Apollo 11 fired the rockets that would launch them out of the Earth's atmosphere. The following Sunday after launch, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin climbed into the lunar module called Eagle, while Collins stayed inside Columbia. They set themselves free from the command module, and the Eagle touched down on the surface of the moon at 4:17 p.m. Eastern Time. 6.5 hours later, after preparing to leave the safety of the Eagle, Neil Armstrong became the first man to step foot on the moon's surface, where he gave his famous line, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." Aldrin stepped out right behind him as 500 million people watched from their television sets at home. While on the moon, the activities performed by both astronauts included raising the American flag.
Houston, Columbia on the high gate, over.
Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. They're setting up the flag now. I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene.
That's all right, I don't mind a bit.
They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
Getting a feel for what it was like to move on the moon itself, which Armstrong stated was much easier than he expected from the simulations, and not difficult to get used to. They also read the plaque on the leg of their lunar module that read, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." They also collected about 47 pounds of soil samples and even spoke with President Nixon over the phone. The crew stayed on the moon for a little less than a day before ascending back towards the command module to rejoin Collins.
Descending, stand by for splashdown. Recovery, America, stable water, the crew is gone.
Apollo 11 splashed down in the Pacific Ocean on Thursday, July 24th, 1 week and a day after launch in Florida. The astronauts were then kept in quarantine for 16 days after returning in case they were carrying any unknown space pathogens. The whole idea for all of the Apollo missions was created after President John F. Kennedy gave his urgent national needs speech on May 25, 1961. This speech is where President Kennedy went in front of Congress in order to ask them to fund programs that he felt the country needed.
These are extraordinary times, and we face an extraordinary challenge. Our strength as well as our convictions have imposed upon this nation the role of leader in freedom's cause. Now going on around the world between freedom and tyranny, the dramatic achievements in space which occurred in recent weeks should have made clear to us all, as did the Sputnik in 1957, the impact of this adventure on the minds of men everywhere who are attempting to make a determination of which road they should take. Since early in my term, our efforts in space have been under review. With the advice of the Vice President, who is Chairman of the National Space Council, we have examined where we are strong and where we are not, where we may succeed and where we may not. Now it is time to take longer strides, time for a great new American enterprise, time for this nation to take a clearly leading role in space achievement, which in many ways may hold the key to our future on Earth. I believe we possess all the resources and talents necessary, but the facts of the matter are that we have never made the national decisions or marshaled the national resources required for such leadership. We have never specified long-range goals on an urgent time schedule or managed our resources and our time so as to ensure their fulfillment. I therefore ask the Congress, above and beyond the increases I have earlier requested for space activities, to provide the funds which are needed to meet the following national goals. First, I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal, before this decade is out, of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space, and none will be so difficult or expensive to accomplish.
Without this speech, the public definitely wouldn't have given their support for the space program, and NASA wouldn't have gotten the funding from the government. This means that the Apollo missions would have never happened, and the space program would not be the same as it is today. Apollo 11 had a significant impact on many things in American society, especially the public. The Apollo 11 mission took place during the tensions of the late 60s and early 70s, where things such as Watergate, civil rights, the Vietnam War, and yes, even Woodstock were causing many Americans to question the values we had as a country and to be scared about our standing in the world. So the public support for the Apollo mission really helped in assuring the public that despite hardships at home and abroad, we can still accomplish great things as a nation. One of the biggest conflicts we were faced with at this time was the Cold War. When the space race began and the Soviets sent the first satellite called Sputnik into space in 1957, America as a nation felt a sense of defeat. So in order to combat this feeling and pull ahead in the race to space, we sent out our own satellite called Explorer 1 in 1958. This, however, was not good enough, and that is why Kennedy issued his challenge in 1961 to land man on the moon before the decade was out. This feature impressed the public and showed not only us, but also the Soviets that we meant business. The Apollo 11 mission also helped to develop scientific understanding of space. Neil and Buzz may only have been on the moon for a few hours, but they collected the first ever samples from the moon's surface, so scientists really took the time to learn from them. Explorer 1 had gone up years before the first moon landing, so scientists were able to receive and examine pictures of the moon's surface, but they could not obtain samples, which meant that they could not tell what things the moon was made up of and the age of the moon. We now know that the moon is made up primarily of 3 types of rocks that we have similar versions of on Earth. They are all igneous rock, which means they were melted and then hardened, which is most likely caused by meteorites crashing into the moon, causing the magma to flow to the surface and become lava where it cools. The first type of rock is called basalt, which is a common rock formed by lava. The next is anorthosite, which can be found on Earth on extremely rare occasions. Finally, there is breccia, which is a rock that is comprised of different rocks melting together and becoming sort of a hybrid rock. Scientists also found 3 minerals that are not found on Earth: armalcolite, tranquilityite, and peroxphorite. The fact that man could actually stand on the moon was an extraordinary find in itself. The NASA scientists were wary at first to whether or not that when the Eagle landed on the moon it would be engulfed and sink into a cloud of dust. They also feared that the surface or atmosphere of the moon, when it came in contact with oxygen, would cause some type of combustion reaction. The astronauts returned home safely and were not carrying any harmful space pathogens with them. Apollo 11 proved to not only America but also the world that putting man on the moon was possible. Each of the 5 times we returned to the moon after Apollo 11, we tested more experiments, and we have gathered all the information we now have about the moon. Since then, we've also expanded our horizons to new planets such as Mars and Venus, where we have sent probes to explore. By 2025, NASA hopes to land man on an asteroid, and by the 2030s, they want to put man on Mars. All of these present and future plans have sprouted from the success of the Apollo 11 mission almost 50 years ago.